Firstly, I thank the organizers, Technos, for organizing a talk on uh, the agrarian scenario and the three bills which have led to a lot of struggles in the last few months. Uh, I think it is very important that other sections of society also try to understand why the farmers are out on the streets protesting. We all know that the last 6 years, the manner in which the BJP government has been ruling has seen the denial of democratic rights, curbing of rights of the working class, the peasants, and continuous attacks on all voices of dissent. In such a circumstance, the present protests that are happening, we need to also understand the context in which these protests have actually come about. We'll have to go 6 years behind to try and understand why these protests of such an intensity are taking place. In 2014, the time of elections, Narendra Modi and BJP had made huge promises, very attractive promises to the peasantry, especially given that we were already having an agrarian crisis and the UPA 2, the handling of the agrarian crisis, had come in for a lot of criticism. So the promises were that if Narendra Modi and BJP are elected to power, then their farmers' suicides would come to an end. Farmers' incomes would be doubled. Farmers would be given at least 1.5 times the cost of production as the minimum support price for the crops, and assured procurement would be there. There would be doubling of the number of days of work under the NREGA with increased wages, credit at lower rates of interest, cheaper agricultural inputs, water to every field. Literally, it had promised almost everything that a farmers' organization like ours would actually put before a government, except maybe land reforms. It had also mentioned that it would not take over land of the farmers or agricultural land without the consent, prior informed consent of the farmers and other dependents on land. So this had helped them to, in a big way, ensure that in the rural areas they get a lot of support among the people. So the promise of Achhe Din for farmers and for the toiling masses ensured that the BJP was able to win the elections and come to power. Within a few days of the formation of the government, we visited the agriculture minister with a delegation of the All India Kisan Sabha and demanded that the promise of providing at least 50% more than the cost of production, which Narendra Modi had made repeatedly in more than 300 public meetings, in which he was present and in many more in which his 3D images were projected. The agriculture minister asked us, why are we taking it so seriously? Those are only promises for election time, and it was only for votes that many promises are made and it cannot be implemented. Without any hesitation, he made this comment. And very soon the BJP national president Amit Shah said it was Chunavi Jumle, or election time jingles that need not be taken seriously. And within a year, the BJP government gave an affidavit in the Supreme Court telling that this C2 plus 50%, or at least 50% more than the cost of production, being the minimum support price for the crops, is something which cannot be implemented. Naturally, this and certain other decisions like the land acquisition ordinance, which allowed corporate takeover of land in a big way, against these, immediately it led to protests. Within usually the first initial 1 or 2 years of a government is termed the honeymoon period, when people give some space for the government to begin its work and implement, hoping that whatever has been promised during the elections will be implemented. But for the first time, probably within 6 months of the government coming to power, we started having protests of farmers and the working class. Attacks on the labor, attacks on the farming community also started within no time. So in the last 6 years, you have seen numerous protests. I would say in the first 5 years of Narendra Modi's led BJP government, numerous protests in which you have already mentioned some of the struggles. Rajasthan, the Kisan Long March in Maharashtra, and the Kisan Mukti rally in Delhi, Mazdoor Kisan Sangharsh rally in Delhi, and so on. All of these, I would like to, for the person who introduced me, that I was reported that I was leading it. It was basically, it was all a collective effort in which I have been also been present in all of these. So these big effort that has gone in the 5 years created an atmosphere that in the rural areas, that BJP Modi Kisan Virodhi, the general impression. So 5 years, the government continued with the same policies, not implementing a single of the promises made in the 2014 manifesto. Just before the 2019 elections, they went in for a ultra-nationalist campaign in a big way, post Balakot and Pulwama incident, with ample support from the corporate media, the big corporate cronies of the government, and spending about 27,000 crores. That is the report that BJP has spent around 27,000 crores for the election campaign. And just before the election, you had the announcement of the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. 5 years they did not implement any policies, and the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi just on the eve of election was announced, in which 6,000 rupees per farmer, that is for about 14.5 crore farmers, would be given. This was the promise. And even on the day of elections, the voters, the farmers who are voters, got the first installment of 2,000 in their accounts. These different factors, and also the status of the opposition, led to a situation wherein BJP came to power in a much bigger way in 2019. And 2019 till now, what has been the situation? It has been a continuation in a much more aggressive manner, the same set of neoliberal economic policies that has taken place. In the first Modi government, we had a situation wherein, though 2 crore jobs were promised for the youth every year, we had the highest unemployment in 45 years. Farm suicides, it was promised that they would end, but 5-year figures, according to conservative data of the government, is that more than 60,000 farmers committed suicide in the 5 years. The number is much higher, because many states are fudging data. Some of the states are saying there are 0 suicides which have taken place, whereas we have details of hundreds of farmers committing suicide even in those states. So in post 2019, in the last 1 year, we have seen a recession-like situation where further increase in unemployment, people losing jobs in the textile industry, automobile industry, lakhs and lakhs of people losing jobs. And on the other hand, the government privatizing the public sector undertakings. That is the direction in which this government had been going. And more going in for free trade agreements. There was a big discussion around the mega free trade agreement called the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, in which other than ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand and other countries were involved. So already in a state like Kerala, the impact of the ASEAN free trade agreement itself, we know how it has impacted the farmers there. A much bigger mega free trade agreement, and there are also similar talks with United States, European Union, and many other countries. So that is the direction in which this government has gone, selling away profit-making public sector undertakings and so on. It is in such a circumstance that the COVID-19 struck the world. In December, you had the cases coming out in Wuhan, China, and within no time, the World Health Organization and international organizations cautioned that this could trigger a global pandemic, and it would lead to a health emergency, as well as it could also see a situation where unemployment and hunger would also rise in a big way. For the first case in India was reported in Kerala in the end of January. But from December till almost March, the central government did nothing as in the direction of resisting the COVID-19 pandemic. There was absolutely no planning or preparedness. You see a marked contrast in the way the state of Kerala under the LDF government has dealt. They had in place a system well before the first returnees from China started arriving. So that was there. But at the central level, it was not there. The central government, the BJP government, and the Sangh Parivar were busy in carrying forward its divisive agenda in the form of the Citizenship Amendment Act, the Article 370, the Triple Talaq, and so on. And post the Delhi Assembly election, a full-fledged communal riots in the national capital. And it was also busy throwing the red carpet to leaders of Brazil and USA. You had Bolsonaro, an authoritarian president of Brazil, who has gone to the WTO against the Indian farmers, being welcomed on January 26th. He is a president who has almost a mirror image of Narendra Modi, and his government also has been brutal repression against political opponents, and a pro-corporate government. He was given a red carpet welcome, and you also had the Namaste Trump event, in which when the whole world was busy fighting the pandemic, both Trump and Modi claimed lakhs of people had assembled with no physical distancing or anything in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad. We all later see how the number of cases in Ahmedabad also, there was a big increase. So it was in this manner, and also in busy with toppling a elected government in Madhya Pradesh with horse trading and so on. This is what the government was busy with. It was only on March 22nd, suddenly the government announced a Janta curfew and came up with a mockery of the plight of the health workers and sanitation workers by saying, to show our respect to these sections, banging of plates and clapping of hands by standing on balconies. That was the call given by the Prime Minister. And on 24th March, the lockdown was announced. No state government was consulted, no political party was consulted. With a 4-hour notice, lockdown was announced. What was the situation as far as the farmers were concerned? That is a time, April, May is a time when the farmers are expecting the harvest. So farmers were expecting a bumper harvest in that period. But with the manner in which the lockdown was imposed, you saw how there was a huge exodus of millions of workers who were left to fend for themselves, no help whatsoever from the central government or different state governments in many parts of our country. So you had the biggest exodus since partition. And farmers were left with no laborers for harvesting activities. In case the farmers with their family labor harvested the crops, then there was no transportation. There was, if they brought it to the market, there was no marketing also possible. There was a harvesting and marketing crisis that was created. If you look at the first 21-day phase of the lockdown and compare it with the same period last year, the total wheat that arrived in the market, not even 6% of the quantity that arrived in the same period last year had arrived in the 21 period of the lockdown. Through the lockdown period, as the wheat arrival started coming, much lower than the last year's arrival, about 54 lakh tons, lesser than the last year were the arrivals. So it is not just in the case of wheat alone. In the case of different other crops, for instance, chana, in the case of mustard, in the case of maize in some areas, tomatoes, cauliflower, and even horticultural crops, huge losses farmers had to suffer. Poultry farmers suffered losses. They were getting around 88 to 90 rupees a kg for a live bird. It came down to as low as 24 or 25 rupees. The milk farmers, they suffered huge losses. The milk producers suffered huge losses. We have seen how people were forced to throw milk on the streets and so on. In many areas, vegetables were not cultivated because they were not getting prices. They couldn't take it to the markets. That was a situation. So in such a circumstance, all sections of the peasantry, maybe with a few exception of a few richer farmers, maybe, but an overwhelming majority of the farmers had suffered huge losses of income. The working class suffered huge losses of income. Over 12 crore people lost their employment during the lockdown period. And agriculture workers lost their employment opportunities. In such a circumstance, the demands of the organizations of the working class, agriculture workers, and the peasantry were that there should be some sort of a income support given to the non-tax-paying poor people of our country. At least 7,500 was the initial demand put forward by Kisan Sabha, CITU, and Agriculture Workers Union. But a larger issue-based unity of the farmers, about 250 organizations, they put forward the proposal that at least 10,000 per month should be given to the farmers. Loan waiver was sought. More employment under the NREGA was sought, and if employment could not be given, unemployment wage, which is a provision within the NREGA, should be given of at least 300 per day. Food, other than food grains, other essentials should be given following the Kerala model, where a kit is for about 88 lakh people, a kit involving almost all the requirements in terms of food and such requirements of a family were met by the government in Kerala. Nothing of that sort has happened in any of the other states in our country, neither the central government, though food grains are much higher, about 5 times the about 4 times the buffer stock is there in the granaries, in the godowns, but that is also not being distributed to the needy. So this is the approach of the central government. Using the lockdown, while keeping the peasantry and the working class under lockdown, the poor under lockdown, the doors have been unlocked for corporate profiteering. That is what we have seen in this, in the name of Atmanirbhar Bharat and so on. Different packages which have been announced have basically ensured concessions and even loan waivers for willful defaulters like Mehul Choksi and Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya and the like, Ramdev and these kind of people have got concessions, but they are refusing to waive the loans of. Even the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, which was announced in 2019 with much fanfare, at that time it was election time. The claim was 14.5 crore farmers would benefit. When the time came to give it in a crisis time, then they bring down the number to 8.6 crore. I don't know how 6 crore farmers suddenly vanished. And this also does not include the tenant cultivators, Adivasi farmers, and so on. A large number of them don't get any benefit from. In such a circumstance, the income support and so on would have created some kind of a purchasing power and demand in the economy that would have helped the economy improve. But that was not the approach the government had. So these were the things the Kisan organizations, peasant organizations had put forward. We had earlier also put two bills from our own struggles in 2018 were developed. One for freedom from indebtedness, another for assured remunerative price for the farmers' produce. Both these were presented in the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha as private member bill by Comrade K.K. Ragesh, Joint Secretary of All India Kisan Sabha and CPIM MP in Rajya Sabha, and Raju Shetty, a member of parliament from Lok Sabha from Maharashtra. None of these have been discussed by the government. So these were demands of the farmers without any discussion whatsoever with the organizations of representing farmers or state governments, which because agriculture is a state subject, the government one fine day suddenly on June 3rd announces 3 bills and makes the audacious, ridiculous claim that on 15th August 1947, when India won freedom, the farmers did not get freedom, and Narendra Modi was giving freedom to farmers on June through these 3 ordinances, which we have seen how it was pushed through in the parliament without even allowing vote, without allowing discussion, in the most undemocratic manner. And the members of parliament who raised this issue, including Comrade K.K. Ragesh, Comrade Elamaram Karim, and 6 others, they were all suspended from the parliament. So that is the manner in which this government has responded. India is a federal system. In a federal system, you are finding that the states are not even consulted on a matter which essentially is under the it is the discretion of the state. Agriculture comes under the state subject. So that is also a issue that we have. Regarding these 3, now they are acts, 3 acts. What are these 3 acts? That Ramkumar, he will deal in detail with that. I would just briefly look into the context in which these bills came. One is, this is also on the basis of the continuous demand of the WTO and countries like United States that India should withdraw from agricultural subsidies, food subsidies, and public stock holding. So that is something which later was articulated by the Shanta Kumar Commission recommendations. Shanta Kumar was a Himachal Pradesh chief minister and senior BJP leader, who again said, articulated these very demands that all government should withdraw from public stock holding. That is, FCI and all should give up its activities and it should be privatized. And it had one specific recommendation for states like Kerala. In Kerala, paddy is procured by paying around 900 rupees more than what the central MSP is. No state in India procures at this rate. So Shantakumar's recommendation is, if any state gives more than the centrally fixed MSP as bonus or whatever, that from that state, then there will not be procurement, except for what is required for the public distribution and so on. So these kind of recommendations. Now these 3 bills are actually carrying forward those issues which have been recommended, which have been demanded by WTO, which have been recommended by Shantakumar Commission. Here we have an interesting scenario where now the main opposition party, the Congress, Indian National Congress, is also coming out in against these bills. If you look at their manifesto in 2019, it says exactly the same thing which the BJP government is talking now. It talks about doing away with the APMC markets and so on. But in this changed situation, if they are recognizing their mistake and recognizing that what they proposed earlier was harmful to the farmers and coming in support, I think it's a welcome development. But these three bills, they have long names. I think even the Prime Minister will not be able to, at one go, tell the name without looking into a text. Maybe I will just put it very simply before you. That is, one is to decontrol the markets, do away with APMC, and also to gradually end procurement at minimum support price. That is, one bill is intended for that. Another is freedom for hoarding and black marketing. That is the change in the Essential Commodity Act. And the third one is corporate contract farming promotion bill. These are the three bills, to put it simply. So the farmers have understood. They have seen what has decontrol meant earlier for them. The agricultural input market has been decontrolled. It has only meant increasing costs of cultivation for them. Prices have increased in a big way, and no added benefit to the farmers whatsoever. Now they are talking about decontrolling and the markets and leaving everything to private sector. And there, the government is making the claim that Adanis and Ambanis and Walmarts and Pepsis, they will provide better price to the farmers. This is a promise made in 91 by the Congress-led government then, when the neoliberal economic policies were brought. The main argument then, which some of the farmer organizations also then were taken in by that, was that Indian farmers will get world market prices. So some of the farmer leaders would argue that now you are getting in rupees, you will get in dollars, you will get huge benefit from this. It took 25 years and more than 4 lakh farmers committing suicide due to the distress that these policies have led to, for some of these organizations to now change their push. Now this government is claiming that these companies will provide you better prices, and one of the bill is called, in its name has price assurance. But nowhere does it say in any of the three bills that the minimum support price will be a legal, legally binding, and the companies will have to pay at least that. So this is the situation. It is. Do you expect these companies whose only interest is profiteering? I'll give you some examples, maybe one or two quick examples before leaving the so that Ram Kumar can speak about the bills. In Mandsaur in 2017, 6 farmers were shot dead by the BJP government. They were demanding remunerative price for their crop. What was their crop? Their crop was garlic. Garlic, according to farmers, the cost of production was 33 rupees per kg. According to the BJP government, the cost was only 27 rupees a kg. Let us take it was 27 rupees a kg. In a hectare, up to 5,600 kgs are produced. The farmer, with his her toil and investment, was producing this. The farmer was getting 1 rupee a kg at that time when they came out on protests. The same, we were the first to reach the houses of these farmers. The farmers were not left sympathizers or Kisan Sabha members. They were all active supporters of the BJP and probably of the Sangh Parivar. They had flags, BJP flags on their houses. But they had invested. They were demanding that they at least be given what they have invested. They were shot dead. 6 of them were shot dead. The same day we reached there, I inquired the price in Reliance Fresh. It was 147 rupees a kg. 3 days back, when I bought garlic in Delhi, it is 280 rupees a kg. It's a big variety of garlic. So you see the kind of losses the farmers are suffering, while the big corporate companies are getting huge. And this is a system where the government had not intervened. That is the system they are promising now. There is another example which I can give just to show how some of these corporate companies go on endlessly profiteer, endless earnings. With the example of coffee, there is a brand called Nestle, which all of you know, Nescafe, Nestle Blend 37. It is selling on the price of Nestle Blend 37, 1 kg on Amazon is 11,990 rupees, 1 kg. And with a 42% discount, it is being available at 6,990. 1 kilo of coffee bean for farmers is fetching 131 rupees a kg. Let us say that Nestle is using some superior variety. Instead of 131, it may be 300 rupees a kg, or it may be 500 rupees a kg. Still, you see the amount. What is the logic of this kind of a pricing? That is because the corporate companies, their only motive is profit, maximization of profits. They don't have any social concern. A government, at least there is some accountability of the government, at least in times of elections. They could be held answerable. But these corporate companies do not have that. You are throwing our Indian farmer at the mercy of these corporate companies, and these 3 bills are Adani and Ambani bills for actually. Already you have the Adani and Ambani, both of them into agri-logistics, coming in a big way. And in 6 or 7 states, from the Food Corporation of India, the food grains are being, Adani's storages are being engaged. So that is the direction in which it's going. So this is something which we are going to resist. We have had huge protests. We started our protest initially on other demands from 21st of April, but June 3rd, when these ordinances came, on June 10th, it was burnt in more than 3,600 centers across the country. Our assessment is about 10 lakh people participated in it. August 9th, on the anniversary of Quit India movement, you had protests, jail bharo protest across the country, in which working class, agriculture workers and the peasants together protested, in which about 15 lakh people is our assessment that they have participated. And on September 25th, I have been involved with student movement as well as the peasant movement for 25 years now, and I have been generally observing politics for a few years before that also. This kind of a widespread protest, which is just which has gone on across the country on 25th, I have not seen such a widespread farmers' protest before. There could have been one meeting or one rally in which masses participated in big number, but this kind we have not. In Bengal alone, more than 2 lakh farmers, just under All India Kisan Sabha ban. Others also, the other organizations were there, but our participation alone is 2 lakh. In a state like Tamil Nadu, more than 1 lakh participation of our members and our mobilization alone. And the struggle is going on. They are seeking all kinds of methods to try and discredit the. They are claiming that we are the agents of the middleman. This is the claim that they have made. I think about those issues, Ramkumar will cover in detail. But it is the agents of Adani and Ambani who are accusing others of all these things. So in such a circumstance, this struggle is going to only intensify. In the end of November, the central trade unions have come together. There are also labor bills also which has come. We have seen how the hard-won right of 8 hours of work is being increased to 12 hours in many areas, how retrenchment and all that is happening. So the central trade unions have given a call for a strike on 26th of November. All the organizations of farmers, agriculture workers, and other mass and class organizations are going to actively support that strike. And preceding that, just after that, following that, on 2 days, you're going to have massive protests by the farmers organizations, and with support from, already they have extended support for those actions. So these are this is the direction in which the struggles are being channelized. The government even now is trying to distract attention from these real issues. We have seen how the Sushant Singh Rajput incident, unfortunate incident, was entirely the media, how it was only highlighting about that. We have seen how in the wake of the Hathras incident, already you are having people being arrested under sedition charges and so on. The most absurd kind, but the most repressive actions are going on in this country. It is against this a massive unity, a massive resistance, and a never before kind of a unity is emerging. I think that is, in these dark times, that gives a lot of scope for hope that things are going to change, and the change would be for an alternative, a pro-people alternative that is so well being exhibited by the LDF government in Kerala, where universal health, universal education, universal public distribution system, and social security, all these would form components of such a unity, such an alternative, along with our basic demands like land and different such issues, and some which I already mentioned. I conclude my inaugural address here, and I was just before we started the session, I was telling, when I have questions, I usually ask Dr. Ramkumar. So all questions that you would have, please feel free. He would answer each one of them in the most effective manner. Thank you all, friends.